Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's Kabbalat Shabbat, live with US TV. I'm Rabbi Mordechai, Rabbi of Watford and District United Synagogue. And welcome to all those from near, from far, and let's get on with it. We start off with the Nefesh, which can be found on page 256 on the green sack siddur. And if you have an art scroll in front of you, it can be found on page 590. We'll be singing some bits, we'll be saying some bits. Follow along in the Hebrew, follow along in the English, whatever you choose. So you're starting with the Nefesh, page 256, it says. Yedid Nefesh Afarachamon Mashoy Chavtecha Eretzoinecha Yarutz Avtecha Kamoy Ayol Yishtachave El Mol Hadorecha Yerav Lo Yadidoy Secha Minoi Fetzov V'chol To'am Hador Noeh Zev Ho'ilam Nafshi Cho'ilas Zahavosecha O Noel Norefa Nolo Beharois Lo Noyam Zivecha Os Tischazek Vasisrapei V'hoi Sola Simcha Soilom Vosik Yehemuna Rachamecha V'chosana Albeinahu V'cha Ki Zekamo Nichsoif Nichsafti Lerois Basiferes Osecha Elechem da libi V'chosana Ve'al Tisalom Higalena Ufrois Chavivi Olai Esukas Shaloi Mecha Toireretz Mechvoitecha Nogilo V'nismechavach Maherahoi Kivamayet V'chonenu Kimeyolam Na na nai 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 na na nai 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 na na nai 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 na 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 nai na na nai nai na nai na na nai 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 na na nai 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 na 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 nai na na nai 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 na na nai 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 na na nai 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 na na nai na 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 nai na na nai 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 na na nai 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 na na nai 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 nai. We now start the first of the 6 Psalms which we read on as we build up to Shabbat. And we read these 6 Psalms, we do Kabbalat Shabbat in order to take us away from the rigid works of the week into the beauty, the restfulness of Shabbat. We can't just go from one to the other. We need a build-up. And that is what Kabbalat Shabbat is for. So we start with Psalm 95, which is on page 258 in the green sack siddur and page 308 in the art scroll. Nchuna ranana ladoyanoi noriol tzor yishenu nekad mofonov basayda bizmirois norioloi kiel godol Adonai melech godol kol Arba'im shana akot badar va'oimar amtoyei levavhem v'hem lo yadu darachai asher nishbati v'api Im yavayon el manuchasi Shira l'Adonai Shir chadash Shira l'Adonai kol haaretz Shira l'Adonai baruch Shemai basru miyayim leyayim Yeshuasai Tzapru v'goyim kavoidai V'chol ha'amim nifla'isab Ki Godai l'Adonai, Olam ha'od, Nairahu, Al kol Elohim ayai, Ki kol Elohim ha'amim melilim, V'Adonai shemayim asa, Hoid v'hada lefanav, Oiz v'siferes b'mikdashai, Haful Adonai mishpachai samim, Haful Adonai kavod v'ois, Haful Adonai kavod shemai, Tzeyu mincha v'olachatzroi savayai, Shtachavul Adonai v'hadras kodesh, Chilu mipanav kol haaretz, Imru v'goyim Adonai malach Achtikon tevel ba'altimoit Yodinamim b'meisharim Yismachu hashamayim v'sogel ha'oretz Yiram hayam layai Yaloi sadai v'chol asher boyayai Ozirananu kolat seyar lifnei Adonai kiva lishbait haaretz yishbait tevel b'tzedek ve'yamim b'emunasai lanai 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 nai 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 Nine, 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 nine. We're now up to Psalm 97, which can be found on page 260 in the Green Saxida and page 310 in the Art Scroll. Adonai malach togel haaretz yismachu im rabim onom varachos avivav. Shomo vatismach Zion vatogel no benois Yehuda leman mishpotecha Adonai ki ato Adonai elyon al kol haaretz ma'oid na'leisa kol Elohim oy havei Adonai sinura shoy mena shoy chasidov miat Rishoim yatzilem, oir zoru ala tzadik, ul'yishrei lev simcho, simcho tzadikim b'Adonai, v'hoidu l'zeicher kodshoy. Mizmor shiru l'Adonai, shir chodosh, ki nifloi sasai, shiyalai aminai, uzarai akashay, hoiti Adonai Yeshuasai, leine goyim gilosit kosai, zochar chastai vemunasai, leveis Yisrael ra'u cholasei aretz, eis Yeshua Eloheinu, horiu l'Adonai kol ha'aretz, pitzchu v'rananu v'zameru, zamru l'Adonai b'chinar, b'chinar v'koil zimra, b'chatzoi tzarois v'koil shoifa, horiu lifnei ha'melech Adonai yiram hayam loyoi, teveil v'yoi shveiva, nahorois yimcha uchof, Yachat harim yeraneinu lifnei Adonai kiva, lishboi toretz, yishboi teveil b'tzedek, ve'yamim b'meisharim, yanai na 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 na. Nanai 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 nanai. Now to Psalm 99 from page 262 in the Sachs, Green Saxon, and page 312 in the Art Scroll. Adonai malach yigazu amim yoshev keruvim tonu ta'ores. Bamutonon yedaber aleihem shomru eidoisa v'choik nosan lomoi Adonai Eloheinu atani so me'onosei hoisa lohem v'anoi keim alali loisom roimamu Adonai Eloheinu v'shtachavu l'har kodshoi Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu mizmor LaDavid Havu l'Adonai b'nei Elim Havu l'Adonai kavod voice Havu l'Adonai Kavod Shemai, Ishtachavu l'Adonai, B'hadras kodesh, Ay koi l'Adonai, Al hamayim el hakavod tirim, Adonai, Al mayim rabim, Koi l'Adonai b'koyach, Koi l'Adonai behadar, Koi l'Adonai shoiber arazim, Ay, Vayshaper Adonai esar zei halvanai, Vayakizim k'mayegel, La'avanayin v'asiryayin, Kawamai ben re'imim, Koi l'Adonai Chotzev lahavoisesh, Koi l'Adonai yochil midbar ayay, yochil l'Adonai midbar kodesh, Koi l'Adonai yochil elayolois, Vava yechasai ye'arois, Uva hecholoi kuloi mekovoid, Adonai Lamavu Yashav Vayeshev Adonai Melech le'olam hayay Adonai Oizleya Moyitein Adonai Yavarech Esamay Vashalom Nanai 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 Nanai. We're about to start L'chadodi, which can be found on page 266 in the Green Sack Siddur and on page 316 in the Art Scroll. But before we start that, I would just like to share a quick thought. Towards the end of last week, Bushy United Synagogue put out an appeal. Arriving in Bushy had come to their neighborhood, a group of refugees fleeing from the terrors of Afghanistan. And they put out an appeal asking people to help, bring some clothes, some provisions for the people that had come. And as I'm sure many of you are now aware, in the news, it's been all over the news. If I were to say the response was incredible, I would be underplaying it. But it was incredible. What else can I say? The amount of chesed that people were willing just to give, bring new things in to help the Afghanistan refugees who'd come from somewhere else, from a different country, were homeless, had nothing. And everyone was pitching in just to be able to help them. In fact, so much so, there's a lady living in Watford, not connected to the community, I don't think she was even Jewish. And she rang on my doorbell last Shabbat, she rang on my doorbell asking me if this was a place to bring clothes to drop off for the refugees. And I talk about this, number one, because it was an amazing achievement. But number two, because in this week's Parashat, the Torah tells us this is something we have to do. It's incumbent upon us to do this. At the beginning of this week's Parashat Tavo, the Torah tells us that when the first fruits of the tree, they need to bring to Jerusalem. Every year with a great fanfare, the great ceremony, they bring the first fruits of their trees to Jerusalem. They'd bring it to the temple that was there. And they'd give it to the Kohen, and the Kohen, they'll do a whole special announcement, the same words that we read on Seder night. On Passover, on Seder night, it's the same words that the person bringing his fruits to the temple would read there as a sign of gratitude to God for giving so much to us. But the most incredible point of this is the last sentence. That is, if you look in the Parashat, in chapter 26, verse 11, the Torah says, you should rejoice in all the good that Hashem, your God, has given to you and your household. Ata, you, Levi, and the Levi, Hager, and the stranger Asher b'kibecha, who is in your midst. Why is this so? What's the Torah is telling us here? That a Levi didn't have somewhere to live. They had no land. A stranger, they didn't have anywhere to live either. They didn't have any land. And if you're in an agricultural society as they were then, if you didn't have land to grow produce, if you didn't have land to feed your animals, you had nothing. You had no way to feed your family. And what's the most important thing we're saying is, the Torah is telling us, if you want to really be happy, you can't do it by yourself, stuck at home. You can only do it when you share with other people who don't have as much as you. The Torah is telling us that message in this week's parasha. Now, how apropos it is that the week when the refugees are flooding in from Afghanistan who need so much help, the Torah is reminding us, yes, you can be happy by yourself. If you want to reach true happiness, if you really want to be happy, the only way to do it is by sharing what we have, sharing the abundance of goodness that God has given us with those people who need it the most. Now move on to the Chadodi, which, as I said before, is on page 266 in the Green Sack Siddur and page 316 in the Art Scroll. L'chadodi l'kras kala Panei Shabbos nekabala L'chadodi l'kras kala Panei Shabbos nekabala Shomer v'zachor b'dibur echad Hishmianu el hamyuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad, l'shemo seferes v'lesilo, l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos nekabelo, l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos nekabelo, likras Shabbos lechu v'necho, ki hi makor habarocho, meirosh mikedem nasucho, soif maseh b'machshavat achila, l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos nekabelo, l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos nekabelo, mikdash melech ir melucho, kumi tzai mitoy chafecho, Rav loch sheves b'yemek havocho, v'hu yachamoy lo layichem lo, l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos nekabelo, l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos nekabelo, hisna'ari me'ofor kumi, livshi bigdei sifartei chami, al yad ben Yishai beis halachmi, korvo el nashi, ge'ala l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos nekabelo, l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos nekabelo, his oirari, ki v'oirech kumi oiri, Ori shidaberi, kavoid Adonai olayich niklo, l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos nekabelo, l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos nekabelo. Loi say v'shiva loi si komi matish toichachi u'matehemi b'och yechesu ani yeyami v'niv nesoir al tila l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos oy nekablo, l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos oy nekablo, v'hoyu im shisa shoy soyich v'rachaku kom v'aloyich, yosis olayich eloi hoyich, kim sois chason al kalo, l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos oy nekablo, l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos oy nekablo, yomid usmoiti froitzi v'yes Adonai ta'aritzi, Ali adish ben partzi v'nismacha v'nagila, l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos oy nekablo, l'chad oidi likras kalo, Panei Shabbos oy nekablo. I wish you all a very, very lovely Shabbat. Thank you very much for joining in. Have a restful, peaceful, wonderful Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom to all of you.